Welcome to Naked History. You're listening to Unearthed.
The ancient city of Rome, founded nearly 3,000 years ago. For 5 centuries, the Roman Empire was the mightiest on earth. And one extraordinary building stands at its heart: the Colosseum.
This building represents the evolution of the Roman Empire from its rise through its fall.
For centuries, this ancient theater has held dark secrets about the empire that built it and the thousands who died within it.
If people had to be killed, they were killed. The Romans didn't have any problems with doing that.
Today, advanced technology is helping scientists make brand new discoveries with unique access to the bones of fallen warriors. How did the ancient Romans present magical spectacles in this giant arena and create entertainment with the power to spread Rome's message across the whole empire? The only way to solve these mysteries is to dismantle the Colosseum brick by brick. We'll blow apart its arches and tunnels to experience life and death within its walls and reveal the secrets hidden inside this ancient wonder. The Colosseum, a giant complex at the heart of the ancient city of Rome. This was an arena of death and magic, of potent spectacles with the power to sustain an empire. Buried within its walls are clues that reveal this was much more than just a theater.
The Colosseum still strikes our heart today. You can still feel the same feeling that the Roman spectators felt at the time of the performances.
Today, teams of experts are exploring deeper than ever into the heart of the building, solving the mysteries of this ancient arena, to reveal how, for 500 years, the hidden secrets of this vast ruin helped Rome build an empire across Europe and beyond. Concealed under its monumental skin is a complex system of pillars, arches, and vaults. They spread the colossal load of nearly 250,000 tons of stone, allowing this building to tower 160 feet above the streets of Rome. In the stadium, space for up to 80,000 spectators, big enough to hold the Super Bowl. Built into the arena floor, a subterranean maze of tunnels and chambers, the secret domain of the empire's most deadly servant, the Gladiator. The Colosseum and the men who fought in it are the most iconic symbols of the Roman Empire. Even today, the Colosseum is an impressive structure. But perhaps its greatest mystery is not how it was built, but why it was built in such a strange place. Geologist Guido Giordano has spent years studying this extraordinary building. His theory is that its location is no accident and may even explain a key moment in the rise of the Roman Empire.
You can see back there the Colosseum. And beyond that, there is the business center for Rome.
The Colosseum was built right in the center of ancient Rome's government district. This is a strange place to build an arena for entertainment. So why was it built here? Guido thinks there may be answers hidden in the parklands that surround the Colosseum.
We have clues here. This is an excavation site, and what's beneath is extraordinary.
These excavators are removing heavy banks of soil from the hillside next to the Colosseum. Under the weight of this soil, the banks had begun to collapse, revealing a hidden subterranean world, a world that Guido feels can shed light on the Colosseum's puzzling location.
This is grand. Look at the scale. There are frescoes everywhere here, beautifully painted, beautifully preserved.
Incredibly, buried under the hills that rise next to the Colosseum is a vast abandoned palace lost for 1,400 years.
Here we have a crown, an eagle here. The beauty of these frescoes shows this definitely must be the residence of a very, very important person.
How did this lavish royal palace end up being buried beneath the Colosseum? Guido thinks that the answer lies in its sheer extravagance.
This must have been a waterfall, shooting water right into this pipe, and then get pressurized, and then shooting right in the middle of the room, spraying up in the air.
Guido thinks the Colosseum was built on top of the palace grounds to make a huge statement to the public, because compared to the palace, the theater looked very different. In the Colosseum, there was no personal indulgence. Instead, there was scale and ambition. This building sent a message to ordinary Romans. It was a palace for them, designed to win their hearts in exchange for entertainment. At its entrance once stood a colossus, a monumental statue that gave the building its name. Taller than the Statue of Liberty, this bronze behemoth was a statue of the sun god Sol. But it had once portrayed an emperor. Its story is a clue to the fate of the palace. Guido believes it had been built by Emperor Nero, one of the most hated leaders of Rome. The palatial rooms reveal evidence of how much he was despised.
It's this old backfilling. Someone fill up this beautiful and huge room.
The people of Rome hated Emperor Nero, eventually driving him to suicide. Then they destroyed his playboy palace, which was built on land he had stolen from them. The land had been devastated by the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. But instead of rebuilding houses for the people, Nero built a palace of his own, complete with a giant boating lake and a statue of himself. After Nero's death, his successor tore down the palace, but saved the statue. Returning the land to the people, he drained Nero's lake and built an amphitheater in its place. And he put the giant statue outside, disguised as the sun god Sol. The Colosseum was built as a gift to Romans, to win back their support. The new emperor, Vespasian, understood that to stay in power, he had to prove he wasn't selfish like Nero.
Later emperor wanted to erase the memory of him. Now it's all buried in darkness.
After Nero's selfish excess, the Colosseum marked a turning point. It was a building for ordinary Romans to celebrate the might of their growing empire. And what they came to see were people willing to die in the empire's honor, gladiators. Very little is known about these deadly messengers of Rome, because in the ruins of the great Colosseum, not a single gladiator bone has ever been found. But now, experiments on unique remains found in Turkey reveal incredible new insights into the mysterious lives of these warriors. The giant amphitheater carried a message from Rome's leaders. Follow us, and we will keep you thrilled. And the stars of the show were the gladiators. But very little is known about these legendary warriors. Hidden in the vaults and columns of the Colosseum are tantalizing clues into the world of the gladiator. These warriors were the biggest attraction in the empire. Inside the arena, they became the stars of a true spectacle. Deep within the maze of brick walls under the Colosseum lies a secret entrance to their mysterious world. A doorway connecting a 180-foot-long tunnel that brought the fighters into the arena. 2,000 years ago, this would have led to Rome's fabled fighting school, the Ludus Magnus. Standing right next to the Colosseum, this was the breeding ground of the most powerful Roman propaganda tool, the gladiator. But there's a mystery. No bones have ever been discovered at the Colosseum to tell us more about the lives of the gladiators. Were they just the empire's disposable thugs? Fabian Kahns wants to find out who these warriors were.
It's quite emotional. I mean, as a kid, I watched, of course, the movies with the gladiators. And now to put your hands on the skull of a gladiator is very fascinating.
Fabian has unearthed something astonishing, the only gladiator bones that have ever been found. They were discovered in the grounds of an amphitheater that once sat on the edge of the empire in what's now modern-day Turkey.
We have two skulls of gladiators. Gladiator skulls are indeed rare, but these are 100% gladiators.
These precious remains give Fabian a unique opportunity. He wants to unlock new secrets about the life of a gladiator in ancient Rome.
Both of these individuals are male, between 25 and 30. What you can see here is a massive blunt trauma. Might have been produced by a dagger or maybe a trident. Blunt traumas to the skull are fatal, and this was, of course, the end of this individual. But we also found a lot of healed traumas. You can see it here, for example. This is a very well-healed trauma to the head.
Fabian thinks this healed skull may reveal more about the way these men were treated by the empire that used them. And that means slicing a cross-section from the bone itself.
We're now going to cut out a piece of this healed wound to find out how this injury was treated.
Under the microscope, the skull fragment reveals something extraordinary.
This is a cross-section of the center of the healed wound on the skull. There is no infection. The wound was cleaned professionally by picking out all the little bone splinters that might have been there. This wound was treated and cleaned very well just after the incident.
What's remarkable is that many of the gladiators' bones from the site in Turkey show similar signs of healed injuries like this.
It's astonishing. Looking at the bones, I think the gladiators had the best medical care available at that time.
Far from being disposable thugs, Fabian thinks the men were treated more like respected athletes.
For me, it's a strong evidence that the owner wants to look after them to keep this investment going, to get them on their feet again.
Turning these men into gladiators was an investment Rome could afford. With its expanding empire, it had no shortage of new stock. Slaves, convicts, and captured soldiers were shipped in from across the empire to play a part in the great spectacle. In gladiator school, they were turned into fighting machines with carefully designed strengths and weaknesses. The nimble Rhetarius, armed with trident and net, would fight the Secutor, an armored juggernaut, wielding a heavy shield and sword. Each pair was carefully matched to guarantee spectacular combat that could lead to glory or death. And Fabian's discovered that these incredibly rare bones can tell him even more about their lives and their diet. Chemical traces of a person's food always build up in their bones. To analyze the chemicals in these gladiator skeletons, he grinds a bone sample into a powder and adds it to a liquid. When he sprays the liquid into a flame, it will burn with a signature color, a fingerprint that reveals the chemicals locked inside the bone.
As you can see, it's a bright reddish flame. This is evidence for a very high strontium content. The gladiators have double as much strontium in their bones as other Romans.
Strontium is a mineral similar to calcium, which strengthens bone. Because its presence here is so high, Fabian concludes the gladiators were given a little extra help with their diet.
It's mentioned in some Roman texts that they have been supplied with a so-called ash drink. And this ash might explain this very high strontium content. The bone needs minerals, and the ash drink would be the perfect supplier for this mineral. It sounds a bit weird, to be honest, but I think this ash drink for the gladiators might be an equivalent to a modern day's energy drink.
The gladiators who fought in the Colosseum started life as outcasts of Roman society. But careful nurturing turned them into elite fighting machines, fit to deliver the empire's message of power.
On the one hand, they have been lower than nothing, like an animal, but on the other hand, they have been superstars.
These new heroes of the Colosseum provided a spectacle that showed off the might of the empire and roused patriotic passion in its citizens. The Colosseum had become Rome's most successful marketing campaign. But beyond the spectacle, what impact did the Colosseum have on the everyday lives of Romans? Now, new evidence reveals how the Colosseum fueled the explosion of a whole new industry to power the empire across Europe. The Colosseum, built in 80 AD as a gift to win the hearts of the citizens of Rome, to entertain and thrill with astonishing battles and terrifying carnage. But the games were only a part of what the Colosseum had to offer to citizens that traveled from all corners of the empire. So how did the Colosseum continue to influence the people once they had left the arena?
Sometimes the games actually lasted for weeks, so there was really big activity day and night.
The towering remains of the Colosseum still impress us even today. 1900 years ago, it would have looked even more magnificent. The stone, now weathered after 2 millennia, would have shone brightly polished. In the perfect archways, statues of marble and gold trumpeted the glory of Rome. Its walls stretched nearly 2,000 feet around the outside. Rising higher than any other structure in the city, this was the biggest single building ever created by the empire. Today, in Rome, little trace exists of anything beyond the amphitheater walls. But Wolfgang Neubauer thinks there was much more to Rome's spectacle of entertainment. Near Vienna, Austria, he is hoping to find new evidence of how the empire designed and laid out the complex of buildings surrounding the amphitheater. In these fields lie the remains of a mysterious lost Roman town called Carnuntum, complete with its own amphitheater, modeled on the Colosseum.
All the remains of these buildings, all the walls, all the floors, they are invisible to the eye. It's just a green field, but we have a huge town here. The central area of Carnuntum is spreading all over about 10 square kilometers.
But unlike in Rome, the ruins here have never been built on. Underground, the remains of every building lie intact. This lost town can give Wolfgang clues about the network of buildings around the Colosseum and the role they played. He's searching for hidden buildings using ground-penetrating radar.
This is the largest survey ever undertaken on a Roman town so far. Everything is preserved in the ground. The only task we have to do is to make it visible again.
His scans reveal a massive building surrounding the amphitheater itself.
We can now depict here a complete new quarter of Carnuntum. So it's outside of the town and it's built direct in relation to the amphitheater.
An entire village grew around the amphitheater to cater for the vast crowds that would flock here, just like at a modern-day football game. The same as at the Colosseum. The scans of this invisible town also reveal that the stars of the games, the gladiators, were given special privileges.
This is the first school of gladiators that we found outside of Rome that has been completely surveyed. We can clearly see a line of small rooms, so this must have been the cells for the gladiators. Here we have rooms that they might have used for medical care, but also there is a big hall where they could eat together. So the gladiatorial school in Carnuntum is absolutely unique.
Wolfgang's work is bringing to life the intricate detail of the gladiator school. But his scans also reveal the role played by all the businesses that grew around the amphitheater. The remains reveal an entire town that, like the Colosseum, held gladiator games. This was the 4th biggest amphitheater in the empire. There was an entire street system. A main road into town was lined with fast food outlets, souvenir stalls, shops and businesses catering for the colossal crowds. There was even accommodation for gladiators, with a heated training hall, a garden, and a bath and spa. These gladiators enjoyed every home comfort you could want. Wolfgang's discoveries here reveal the full story of Rome's Colosseum.
The combination of all this data and the imagery that we produced out of it gives us a look into the day of the spectacle that happened really on an industrial scale.
And all across Europe, copies of the Colosseum offered new Roman citizens a part in that industry.
Such a day was really important for the whole society here. It's just amazing to bring this to life again, to see how this all worked and on what high industrial level this entertainment business actually was.
With such a huge industry in place, many livelihoods depended on the games here and in Rome. The Colosseum and the theaters that copied it were the lifeblood of the empire.
These findings here in Carnuntum clearly change our image of how the gladiatorial games in the provinces was organized. So it was not people traveling around, gladiators which were brought in. It was really stable. It was an infrastructure that was set up, and yeah, it was a big business.
Out of this vast business grew equally huge legends of remarkable events staged inside the Colosseum. And mystery still surrounds one of the greatest. Could they perform giant sea battles inside the arena? And how did the era of the gladiator finally come to an end for the greatest empire on earth?
The Colosseum was a real showpiece, so I think it's not improbable at all that the Romans would hold such a sea spectacle.
How could this stadium possibly be filled with battleships? There's a clue buried right next to the Colosseum. A 3-foot-wide tunnel that runs right beneath the walls. Archaeologists believe that it may feed into a labyrinth of strange, shallow channels. Channels that lead to the center of the arena. Could these be the remains of a gigantic system with the power to flood the Colosseum with water, so the emperor could stage full-blown sea battles? The ultimate display of Roman might and ingenuity. The legend of the Colosseum's sea battles comes from a single ancient text. It describes the arena flooding in a matter of hours. How could this be possible? High up in the mountains outside Rome, Valerie Higgins is trying to find the answer. She starts at one of Rome's famous aqueducts, the Aqua Claudia. It's the biggest of 11 giant channels that piped water into the ancient city.
We want to understand how much water could go through it. We want to understand how it delivered water into Rome. How difficult is it for the Romans to fill an arena?
Helping Valerie is Adriano Morabito, an expert in Roman subterranean tunnels. This ancient aqueduct once channeled fresh water 46 miles into the center of Rome.
Along here, we can see the level of the water going along.
Maximum half a meter of water. And then the rest was just empty. Obviously, it was going down by gravity, not by pressure.
Valerie wants to work out whether this aqueduct could have supplied enough water to fill the Colosseum in just a few hours.
What we would like to do is measure the height of the aqueduct and then measure it in another place as well, so we can work out the gradient.
The slope of the tunnel floor will help them calculate how fast water flowed into Rome.
So here is 110, and there is 87. So we have a 23 centimeters difference in 9 meters.
But what they find is a very gentle slope, a gradient of only 1 in 40.
They didn't actually want the gradient to be too steep. Water that's flowing too fast erodes the structure.
Valerie's work shows the water here would have flowed far too slowly to fill the Colosseum as the legend describes.
It's an extraordinarily large arena. It isn't filled very high. It's only filled to like 1.5 meters, but nevertheless, it's really hard to imagine water coming through here, filling the Colosseum.
But Valerie believes the aqueduct may not tell the whole story. She thinks there may be a crucial piece missing from this complex puzzle of Roman plumbing. Multiple aqueducts, 11 in total, channeled fresh water directly into ancient Rome. Valerie's theory is that when the Colosseum was built, a huge water tank was added somewhere near the amphitheater. The tank stored enough water to flood the Colosseum in one shot. Beneath the amphitheater, the network of circular channels distributed the stored water quickly and evenly into the arena floor, ready for a spectacular sea battle. Then, 4 huge drainage channels opened to flush the water away again, in time for the next games. But if a giant storage tank was the key to filling the Colosseum with water, where is it? With the help of Dr. Matteo Barone, Valerie follows the route of the aqueduct through urban Rome. Near the Colosseum, she discovers the partial remains of a much larger structure that once existed here. Could this be the missing piece of the jigsaw?
We have some remains of a monumental fountain. What is interesting about the monumental fountain is there was a water storage unit in it.
Valerie thinks the original structure is now missing, but would have been big enough to hold the 3.5 million gallons needed to fill the Colosseum.
We've got the Colosseum over there, so this could quite easily be diverted to be used in the Colosseum.
But it would have to flow fast to do the job in just a few hours. She makes one final measurement to work out the slope between the tank and the floor of the Colosseum.
It's 6 meters difference between here and the Colosseum.
It's very steep going down here. It descends quite fast. You could get a big hydraulic pressure from here that would push the water into the Colosseum very quickly. So I think it's a feasible proposition.
Thanks to the ingenuity of Roman water engineers, the Colosseum staged spectacles that became legendary across the expanding empire. But sea battles couldn't be staged at every amphitheater. How did the empire captivate its citizens without them? Now new clues in Naples reveal the magical techniques once used to strike awe and wonder into the Colosseum's crowds. The Colosseum, a spectacular building that helped establish the greatest empire in history. This is where the Roman Empire cast its spell on its citizens. Inside, a mysterious maze of walls and passages fills the floor of the arena. They suggest that something extraordinary once happened here, but these remains have crumbled too much to reveal their secrets. Heinz Best has come to the Capua Amphitheater, a twin arena to the Colosseum. He believes there is evidence here that the Romans could make exotic animals like lions and tigers suddenly appear out of nowhere in the arena. And it's not long before he starts to see telltale patterns emerge in the masonry markings. These small holes in the walls are crucial clues to Heinz. They reveal that the shafts and columns once supported complex theatrical machinery, lifts, trapdoors, and ramps. These theatrical machines were the key to the unbelievable spectacles staged in the arena. And he thinks that some new clues reveal the scale of the machines that were used and how they managed to raise huge wild beasts to the arena floor. Beneath the arena floor, and among the dense maze of concrete shafts, engineers built inside each chamber elaborate wooden elevators to raise dangerous beasts to the arena. Slaves drove a capstan that winched the caged animal up to a trapdoor beneath the arena floor, making beasts and fighters appear as if by magic. This underground labyrinth was the baking hot sweatshop that drove the arena, and it would have looked very different from how it appears today. Below the arena, everything had to run like clockwork. Because here and at the Colosseum, only a perfect show would do. Audiences would roar with excitement, in awe at the breathtaking power of their Roman masters. Heinz's discoveries reveal how the Colosseum was designed with one purpose: to defy belief. Within its walls, and those of amphitheaters across Europe, audiences would fall under the spell of the mighty Roman Empire. But the Colosseum did not last forever. Can new evidence beneath the streets of Rome reveal what led to the collapse of this once mighty structure? And did it crumble as the Roman Empire crumbled around it?
This building is iconic as it represents the evolution of the Roman Empire from its rise through its fall.
Was it the end of the empire itself that triggered the collapse of the Colosseum? Or do clues inside the arena itself suggest that an act of nature brought down its walls? Under the 250,000 tons of masonry sit truly colossal foundations. a gigantic donut over half a mile around, 100 feet thick and 40 feet deep, made from the Romans' toughest concrete. But experts believe it wasn't tough enough, causing cracks to form, which divided the foundation in half and ruined the stability of the structure above. But what could have caused these cracks? How did the greatest empire builders make a mistake that ultimately brought down the arena's giant wall? Geologist Guido Giordano has studied the landscape around the Colosseum for several years. He thinks cracks in the foundation of the Colosseum would explain what caused the amphitheater's collapse.
The north side is built on the same rock that make this hill, which are strong, good bedrock. But on the south side, the Colosseum is built on very soft sediments.
Soft, muddy river deposits beneath the southern half of the Colosseum make this part of the building very unstable. Did one of the many earthquakes that rocked ancient Rome crack the Colosseum in two?
During the big earthquake that struck Rome, the shaking of the ground was substantially different from the north side on the solid rock, where the shaking was just like this, to the south side on the soft rock, where the shaking was like that. And you can see big cracks running through. This is what happens when you have a big shaking and differential subsidence.
In fact, an earthquake did bring down the south wall, but only centuries after the end of the empire. Did something else catastrophic end the era of the Colosseum much earlier? Guido's hunting for clues in other ancient ruins close to the amphitheater.
This is the theater of Marcellus, the largest theater of ancient Rome. Similar to the Colosseum, it has seen a lot of changes.
Like the Colosseum, the theater of Marcellus was once a grand symbol of an empire at its peak. But something changed, sending this magnificent building into decline too.
You can see around here there are a lot of rocks scattered that sort of litter the ground. These holes used to host metal clamps that the Romans used to connect these travertine blocks in order to stabilize the structure. This is one of the first things that were stolen from the monument.
Despite 300 years as the heart of Rome's vibrant entertainment industry, Guido believes the Marcellus and the Colosseum suffered a sudden twist of fate.
If you look at the top, you will notice that there are apartments. Those are clearly not part of the original structure of the theater. They've been built up later on to replace the top part of the theater that at some stage collapsed when this beautiful theater was progressively abandoned.
Guido thinks the theater was abandoned following a decision to move power and wealth away from Rome. Nearby, at an ancient bridge, Guido finds further clues about the fate of the theater.
Consider this nice layering. The block that make the columns of the theater, just 500 meters away from here, are remarkably similar. Considering the amount of material needed for this bridge, we can imagine that possibly the third layer of the theater, which is presently missing, was actually the site where most of these blocks have actually been taken.
With the empire's wealth in decline, the luxuries of life, theater, and fun were sacrificed for basic building maintenance.
People did not have the wealth to go to theater or to go to other kind of performances. Entertainment structure like the Colosseum started to decline, deteriorate, and eventually, through time, even collapse.
The cracks in the empire were showing, and the Colosseum was abandoned. And with that, the golden era of the Gladiator was over.
These rocks are witness of a very complex and long history.
Yet almost 2,000 years later, the Colosseum's ruins have lost none of their magic. Built to erase the memory of a selfish emperor, the Colosseum was designed to entertain the people and to fuel the rise of an empire. Its hidden secrets still thrill us even today, reminding us that the Roman Empire was indeed the greatest on earth.
Naked History is brought to you by Element 18. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a comment below and subscribe to our channel for new videos every week.